One part of my job that I love is being able to share real client success stories with everybody, making it known that sleep training is definitely not linear, definitely has some drawbacks. We can see regressions, and sometimes doesn't take just 2 weeks of time to get our sleep in order. Today, I am going to talk about a real client experience, real client success, and take you from the beginning, middle, and end of sleep training to the final achieved goal of sleeping all night long and taking one delicious nap a day. Hi, my name is Sarah, and as the lead certified pediatric sleep expert at Your Zen Baby Sleep, I am proud to be able to say that I have helped over 500 families within my one-on-one programs with 98% success. It's incredible that my families are able to achieve their goals in such a short period of time, even if that period of time looks a little longer for babies like this 20-month-old that we are going to talk all about today. To protect the family's anonymity, I am going to use a name that is not anywhere nearly related to the baby's actual name, and this will be Cecilia. We are talking about a 20-month-old toddler girl, not really baby girl, and when the parents came to me, they said that they had attempted sleep training at around 9 or 10 months, and they were successful for a short period of time where the method they used, which was similar to Ferber or time checks, they would go in, check on her briefly, and leave. They got to a place where the child was able to fall asleep independently in her crib. However, after a brief sickness, the baby ended up starting to co-sleep with mom and dad again, and upon trying to put her back in the crib, they noticed vomiting behavior started to develop. So anytime this child would get in the crib, she would vomit. And at that point, the parents said, no way, we cannot let her be in the crib, and forget it, just come sleep with us. The family also had a living situation in which the grandparents lived with them the majority of the year. So there were a lot of different opinions regarding sleep and the way to manage sleep. So when the child would wake up sometimes very, very early in the morning, around 4 o'clock, the grandmother had no problem starting her day with the child, which definitely continued to throw off sleep. So there was a lot of different factors to solve for and a lot of variables to control in order to support the parents, grandparents, and baby as we were teaching her to fall asleep independently. The only way that they were able to get her to take a nap was by putting her upright in her own little rocking chair and sitting behind her and allowing her to fall asleep in an upright position in a child-sized rocking chair. So we know also between the early morning wakings, the difficulty falling asleep at bedtime, the wakings in the middle of the night, and the non-restorative sleep that comes from sleeping in an upright position, she had accrued a major sleep debt and was definitely ready to walk through the process of sleep training. The first thing we had to solve for was the vomiting behavior, and as the process continued, what I want you to pay attention to is that pooping behavior then became part of the equation. So not only were we managing any vomiting that might happen at bedtime, we were also managing on-demand pooping that was happening during naps and bedtime as well. Putting that to the side for a second, what I created the program surrounding was teaching Cecilia how to fall asleep using time checks, because we know that was a method that worked successfully the first time. Typically when a method works one time, it's going to continue to work for that child over the years. We know that we had to set up the grandparents in a space where they knew that this was really important for the parents to be able to get sleep, and did a little education with the grandparents about the importance of long consecutive hours of sleep and not sleeping upright in a rocking chair or not waking up at 4 in the morning to start the day. After laying that groundwork, we were able to walk through the process of time checks, but the specifics really were to manage the troubleshooting of all of the behaviors we were seeing as this 20-month-old was trying to avoid being in the crib. Let's go to the actual data for night 1. The biggest piece of feedback I gave to the family was to move bedtime a little bit earlier because she was so chronically overtired. Having that bedtime at 8 or 8:30 was really working against her body, especially because she wasn't getting a good restorative nap. The parents had her in the bed by 7 o'clock, and she was able to fall asleep by 7:53. Let's talk about the real-time data and exactly how the parents walked through this process in the several weeks of sleep training that we worked together. On the log, they had mentioned that they put her down at 7:40, which was at least 20 minutes earlier than we usually put her down, but not accounting for the fact that she probably was going to protest because she wasn't being assisted to sleep and she was sleeping in her crib. The parents did note that they cheated and put her down when she was overtired instead of completely awake, and she did fall asleep within 40 minutes, which was a win. She woke up 3 times that night, the first being from 9:40 to 10 o'clock, and the parents did not have to do any types of check-in. So it was 20 minutes of just observing on the monitor because there wasn't much protest or crying involved. The second time was a much longer period of time where they performed check-ins from 1:20 to 2:50. This is really common once we get past the 12 o'clock mark for our little ones to wake up for a long period of time because we've now transitioned out of our deepest sleep into a more light sleep phase. She woke up for 10 minutes at about 5:30 and there was no need for intervention, and then started the day at 6 a.m. Now here is where some of the inconsistency comes into play that did negatively affect the results in the first couple weeks, which I am always honest and real about because listen, you're humans. We are going to make mistakes and there's lots of room for human error. We just know that if we're not super consistent, we may not see the results as quickly as we want. So when we put her down for the nap, she was actually assisted to sleep. And I had given feedback to the parents that it was really important to start sticking to the method because sending mixed signals would not fare well for this child. Usually when we're not super consistent out the gate, you can see a little bit of an improvement, but very quickly the child picks up on it and the protests can actually increase. On the second night, the parents were really motivated and encouraged by the progress of the first night and decided to actually go through with putting her in the crib wide awake. A little bit later than I had suggested, but at 7:45, she went in the crib and she did fall asleep by 8:15, which was awesome. We did not see much protest. They checked just a few times and she was able to go to sleep independently. At 11:06 to 11:08, she did wake up and she did vomit. However, of course, as kids do, we are assuming from the notes that this was not a result of the behavior that we had seen, but actually because she was starting to catch a cold and vomiting from the excess mucus that she had in her system. The parents went in, did not pay attention to the actual vomiting. They cleaned everything up, they cleaned her up, they changed the sheets, they did all of the things, they put her back, and she went to sleep right away. So we know that she was tired, and the awesome part is she slept straight through until 6 a.m., probably because at the beginning of the night she was put to sleep from an awake state. And even when there was the vomiting, it was taken care of. She was comfortable. She knew that she was supported, put right back in the crib, and she understood the process from that point. The really cool part is that we know that she started this cold. It was just a head cold, common cold. There wasn't a fever, just some congestion, runny nose, and a little bit of coughing. And she actually started to sleep so well. For this next week, we didn't see any vomiting behavior. She fell asleep from night 3 to night 7 on average within 15 to 20 minutes, not requiring any check-ins. And her wake-ups in the middle of the night were very brief, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, and usually only waking once or twice at nighttime, also not requiring parental intervention because she didn't cry out and she went right back to sleep, which was amazing. After night 7, this is when I usually start to see a ton of progress, particularly with naps. So once we really have the night skills mastered, naps typically fall into place quickly. For my little Cecilia, this was not the case. This is when we started to see tons of behavior regarding vomiting and now pooping. It come into play specifically at nap time. So she wasn't exhibiting these behaviors at bedtime any longer, which was a good thing. However, for nap time, it was really hard for her to get to sleep in the crib because she had been so used to months and months and months of sleeping upright in her rocking chair. The behavior that we would see is that she would actually make herself vomit. So she would gag herself, throw up, which the parents responded to by cleaning everything up, removing all of the sheets. We had a ton of sheets ready to go to change, changing the clothes, making sure her, her body was clean, putting her back in the crib. And then what she realized, because this 20-month-old was brilliant, was that vomiting isn't going to get me out of the crib. Let me poop. So she would poop just a little bit, and she would call out to her parents and say that she pooped. Parents would come in, change the diaper. We would give no verbal interaction, nothing. The room would be as dark as possible. We would not talk to her. Change the diaper back in the crib. She would always save some extra poop, so she'd poop again. Typically, by the third poop, that's when we would eventually find that she would fall asleep. Generally, though, she would only sleep for about 30 to 40 minutes at nap time. And every day, this became an issue for several weeks with her nap training. I'm going to spare you all of the nitty-gritty details that evolved over the next 4 weeks because I did extend my time with this family. They were on board and willing to continue to work through this because they saw the positive effects that the sleep training had at night, and they knew that Cecilia would be able to do this during the day. We just needed to give it a lot more time and really work through these behaviors. Eventually, some things that we did to reduce the instances of vomiting and pooping was to move nap time much earlier. We moved the nap to almost 11:15, 11:30, and we didn't feed her for an hour before the nap. So we did a morning snack around 10:30 in the morning, just so that she would have something to satiate her. We did not do lunch, which is typically what I do during the toddler years, is offer lunch and then nap, so that her belly had mostly digested the food, so that if she did try to vomit, there wasn't any type of food that was coming up. And eventually that worked in not allowing her to actually vomit because nothing was really coming up. Now with the pooping, what we did was change the order of when we were feeding her specific types of foods. We tried to change the diet so that she received more of her fibers in the morning and more of her binding foods in the afternoon, so that by the time her digestive system caught up to itself, it wouldn't feel the urge to poop at 12 and more likely felt the urge to poop before dinner time. Also, moving that lunch meal to after the nap prevented the digestive system from really turning on and feeling the urge to poop in the way that she was and the withholding over the course of the 3 diaper changes. As any parent would, these parents got tired. And there were times during this process where I had to have very frank conversations with them that they needed to be consistent. So we would see some progress and then we would regress and there would be poop, not really vomit anymore, but short naps and a lot of nap refusal, and the parents would get exhausted and they'd resort back to the rocking chair. And anytime this happens, what that means is that we're just taking a couple steps back because the child thinks, oh, well, I just need to do that next time, and then I get my rocking chair. So after 2 or 3 heart-to-hearts with them, I had said, I am happy to continue to extend your time at no cost, but you have to be 100% consistent. And for not only for the purposes of working together, but for the purposes of Cecilia just learning the skill. And the great news is that after a total of 6 weeks, yes, 6 weeks, it doesn't always take 3 nights, we got Cecilia to a place where she was going into her crib by 8 p.m., sleeping through until 6:30 a.m., taking a nap of at least an hour and a half a day, with 0 instances of pooping or vomiting. And I credit all of that to the hard work, dedication, and eventual consistency that her parents provided for her. I hope this makes you feel more connected to more real life stories about sleep training, because when we read them on the internet, a lot of it is just, I let my baby cry for 3 days and they fell asleep. The reality is that's not every kid. Most kids take a longer period of time, and sleep training does not look like direct linear progress. Sometimes there are a lot of ups and downs. So if you're struggling with sleep training, or this story really resonates with you and you would like to reach out for more help, please scroll down to find my information on how to contact me. YoursandBabySleep.com is my website. There are links there. to book a call, to learn more about my one-on-one programs. And while you're on your way, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment if you have questions about sleep training or the way that I help support families. I'd also love for you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you are the first to know when I release my new sleep content. As always, from my living room to yours, thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to see you next time.